All right, so today we're going to be dividing polynomial functions. So first thing we're going to do is long division. So this is something that you had not learned last year. We're going to teach long division in pre-calc. So what we're dividing by goes on the outside and the other numbers go on the inside. So this is like long division like when you were younger. So what you're saying is 2x goes into 2x cubed how many times? So the easiest way to do this is I always do 2x cubed divided by 2x. And whatever that result is what we're going to be putting up here. So it's an x squared. And now I actually multiply each of these terms by x squared. So I get 2x cubed plus 7x squared. And we're going to subtract just like you did when you're younger. So those cancel for us. 5 minus the 7 gives me a negative 2x squared. Again, you're dividing. Negative 2x squared divided by the 2x. You're only using your first term. The resulting answer is what we're going to have up here, negative x. So multiply each of those by a negative x. Oh wait, I forgot to bring down that term. I almost forgot how long division works. So subtract, those cancel. Negative 19 minus a negative 7 would give me negative 12x. Bring down your last term. Divide these two. Negative 12x divided by negative 2 would give me a negative 6. Multiply those both by negative 6 and do the 7 times a negative 6 also. When I subtract these, I get a remainder of 0. That means that it went in evenly. That means that 2x plus 7 is a factor of that. It also means that if you wrote 2x plus 7 times x squared minus x minus 6, that equals this long equation right there. So this times this equals that equation that we started with. So you could FOIL it out and check if you wanted. So let's try another one here. I started writing it up here because I started messing up down here. And so again, I'm dividing x to the fourth by x squared, gives me an x squared. So I'm going to multiply that out. Let's see, it's x to the fourth. There's plus a 0x. So I have plus 0x cubed plus 8x squared. And then subtract. I'm going to bring it down here. So that gives me a 3x cubed. And then was that an 8 there? So it gives me a negative 4x squared. And I'm going to bring down the next term. Divide these. I get a plus 3x. So multiply every single term by it. So I'm like multiplying 3x. So it's the idea that you're multiplying like this is what we're multiplying, you guys, if you're having issues with it. You're multiplying all three of the terms. And the answer is what I'm writing down right here. So that's 3x cubed plus 0x squared plus 24x. Subtract, that cancels. I get a negative 4x squared. This gives me a 0x. And I'm going to bring down the minus 32. So now divide these. It's going to give me a minus 4. Sorry about that. It's a minus 4 up there. I see it's frozen again on you. So go ahead and multiply. Hopefully it unfreezes soon. Negative 4 times all of those is negative 4x squared plus 0x minus 32. Subtract it and I get 0. Again, my remainder is 0. So when I divide, that would be the answer. This divided by that is x cubed plus 3x minus 4. So we have a few more down here. I'm going to show you what it looks like when you get a divider or when you get a remainder. So still, you're dividing the first two terms, x to the fourth divided by x squared. So that gives me an x squared here. So now I'm going to multiply every single term by it. Subtract. That would give me a negative 4x cubed. Subtract there. Bring down my 20. So divide here. I'm going to get a negative 4x. Subtract, those cancel. This gives me a 2x squared. Those give me a 0x. I'm going to bring down the negative 10. Last thing to divide by, I'm going to put a plus 2 right here. So when I subtract, that will cancel. This will give me a 2. What did I do here? Oh, it's a negative x. So negative gives me a positive 2x. So when we're writing the answer out now, this is a remainder. And so remember when you're younger, you put like a remainder 2x. Or last year when you were doing synthetic division in Algebra 2, you'd put r 2x. So the proper way to write it, though, would be x squared minus x minus 5 plus, this goes over what we were dividing by. So it'd be plus 2x over x squared minus x minus 5. So that's what you get when you divide. So we're going to try another one with a remainder. So divide my two terms here. I get 2x squared. Subtract them. I brought down that term. Divide 9x squared divided by 3x. Subtract. Bring down my 6. Divide. That's my remainder. So I have my original. So 2x squared minus 3x plus 2 plus 10 over what I was dividing by. So remainder goes over what you were dividing by. I'm going to show you two more examples. You can pause the video if you're needing them, and you can look at them right here. Just some more examples. Remember, you're dividing. What do you get? And so on. Come down here. So there's two more if you want to write down two more examples. I wasn't going to do it, though. I'm going to move on to the back now. So just pause it and write it down if you need. So dividing with synthetic division, this is what you should have done in Algebra 2 last year. So remember, you take the opposite of the outside. So put a -4 here. Then you make your really long L. And the leading coefficients are what's going to go on the inside. So it's 1, -1, -27, -28. Remember, if one of these terms is missing, you would put a 0 in its spot. So like down here, see how it says x cubed? X squared is missing, so that coefficient is a 0. And then first term is always a 0. You add down, and I'm going to multiply 1 times the -4 here. Sorry, I see it froze again. 1 times this -4. That's where this -4 comes from. Add these two numbers for me, -5. Multiply these two numbers and put it up here. Add these two numbers right there. Multiply. Add. If you get a 0, it means you have a 0. You have like no remainder, so that's good. So this was an x cubed problem. So now these become your coefficients. Remember of it. So it's x squared, x and number, and then remainder. So it's 1x squared minus 5x minus 7 with no remainder. So again, opposite. So 2 goes on the outside. 3, -22, 37, and -10. Add down, multiply it. So I'm doing 3 times 2, and that goes back up. Add these numbers down, multiply these numbers, bring it back up. Add down, multiply these two numbers and bring them back up. Add down. Remainder is 0 again. That's a 16. So it was an x cubed, so it becomes 3x squared minus 16x plus 5, no remainder. So if you want practice in the middle two, here's two more. There's two answers, but they're just like the other ones, but they have a remainder. So I'm going to show you one with a remainder on the bottom. So all we did here is, again, opposite, numbers added. Remember, the remainder goes over what you were dividing by. Here, remainder. So if there's a number up here, the numbers were 0. If there's a remainder, put it over what you were dividing by. So now we're going to go ahead and do the bottom ones. So it's -8 on the outside. So x squared. Remember I said x squared was missing, so we're putting a 0 in its spot. So I'm going to add down, multiply up. Add down, multiply up. Add down, multiply up. Add down. So this remainder is 0. That means it goes in evenly. It means x plus 8 was a factor. So then this was x cubed, so we do x squared minus 8x plus 15. Let me show you one that's a higher power. So this is going to be a 9 on the outside because opposite. And this time it's x to the 4th, x to the 3rd, x squared's missing, and the x term is missing this time. Add down, multiply up. Add down, multiply up. Add down, multiply, add down, multiply, add down. Multiply, and I get a -1. So since this was x to the 4th, this time, you guys, now this is an x to the 3rd. You always drop a power. So it's 1x cubed. That would have been 0x squared. X, number. This is a remainder. So I'm going to put plus -1 over what I was dividing by. You could have put just minus. It's the same thing. Just -1 over that. All right, let's see. How can division be used to factor polynomials? So if we divide, like up here, see how it ended up with an even number? So sometimes when we're done, this right here is going to factor for us. And even if it didn't factor, you could find the rest of the zeros because you could do the quadratic formula to it. So once you get it back down to a square, we can use quadratic. So we're going to use division right here to see if this is a factor and then finish it. So if we get a remainder of 0, that means it is a factor, and then we will finish factoring it from there. So we're going to put a 4 on the outside. And if they said something like this, like f of 2 equals 0, that means that the 2 is the number you'd put on the outside. So if they're telling you that equals 0, whereas this is we're asking if it's a factor, that's why we're using the opposite of it. So we're going to go ahead and add down, multiply up. So we got a 0, that means it is a factor. So yay. So is it a factor? We say yes, it is a factor. That was a check mark. So then write your answer. So it's x cubed. So we get x squared minus x minus 2. And then we can finish factoring that. So if it asks for factored form, though, you're going to put the x minus 4 back on here. So this is the factored form of our equation. Now it actually wants us to find our zeros. So we'd find all of our zeros. So we get 2, -1, and we're going to say the 0 that we use. So don't forget that too. So that right there is called your factored form. So we wrote that in factored form. And then right here is when we write all the zeros. So let's go ahead and try one of these. So this right here, you still can use it. It's going to be -5/2. So -5/2 is the number you're going to use on the outside. So add down, multiply up, add down, multiply up, add down, multiply up. So I get 6x squared minus 14x plus 8. So if I'm going to factor this right here, I can divide out a 2 first because I like to make my life easier. And then I'm going to go ahead and factor that right there. So you do your AC method to it. When you do that, you should get 3x minus 4 and x minus 1. All right, and then we're going to also use the factored form up there. So this is the full factored answer. The two terms we have there and the original. All of my zeros would be 4/3, 1, and -5/2. So one more, we'll put a 1 right here. Add down. Got a 0. X to the 4th, so this becomes 2x cubed plus 3x squared minus 8x. No remainder, so let's go ahead and group these. I'm going to take out an x squared there. I'm going to take out a -4 there. So I get x squared minus 4, 2x plus 3. The original one up there. This would factor though, so if they asked you for your full factored answer, it'd actually be x plus 2, x minus 2. So this would be the fully factored version of the original equation. So this right here factors into that. Now if they ask you to find your zeros, you get plus or minus 2, -3/2, and the original 1. So also don't forget your original 1 right there.